Welcome, good afternoon. Basically, we had a good week pre-camp. We screened around 35 players this week, different age groups, so we had a lot of youth players also in. We trained here in Atletico, had an intense week. It was for me a pleasure to be on the pitch, my office is the pitch, and I enjoyed it the fullest to start. Today we had the hard decision to cut down the call-up list, so now we added the internationals and are down to 28 players, 4 keepers, 24 field players. And I'm curious, of course, to meet the internationals, full of joy, full of pleasure, looking forward to the games against Malawi. We had a very wide look, so to call up those players, first of all, I already saw 10 league games, not all of the teams, but nearly all, so I was a lot around. Secondly, we asked all the club coaches to suggest 5 players also, just to get a bit the feeling. I think they are most with the players on the pitch, so we asked also their opinion about it. Then we spoke with the assistants, and like this we framed this 35 list. For me, very good to take the taste, on the pitch with them. I think we have a lot of young talents. So of these 35 players, there have been, I think, over 10 have been still in the youth age group. We have in the offense part, on certain positions, a load of players, which was a challenge for us also to pick them. Of course, then there are 1-2 positions we also need to find a bit solutions. We tried today in the internal game also certain players on 2 positions, but all in all, I'm very satisfied, and together with the internationals who are coming in, I think we have a very competitive squad who can aim high. Basically, it's always, today we needed to do a cut down, and this is always difficult for me. Basically, I'm a human, and when I need to disappoint players and send them back, it's not nice for me, and it's always challenging. I spoke to the players, I explained also, that on certain positions we have a load of interesting players. Sometimes it's a bit also, how is the basic form at the moment? So it was not easy for us to do this cutout, but it's also part of my job to take those decisions. I think now with those 28 we picked, we are good to go. We still stay open-minded. As I told you, I saw so far 10 league games. And for example, in Danny Roses, I did not see the club so far, so we are still open. I hope that 90% of the players we had in the right one, and still open myself if there are upcoming talents in the league. Well, basically, I always have a big respect of every opponent. For me, Malawi, I think they did not enter in the qualifiers for the WAFCON, so I think they need to have more exposure in friendly game to get the FIFA ranking also. Now they're in the next edition qualifiers in, but they have an interesting squad. I mean, they have top players abroad, and then it's always the question, have they really been called up? Do they arrive also here? So I think finally we can judge on their squad on the day they arrive here. I think the top players we have abroad, they are really on the top side of the world. So I'm very happy, of course, that we have Barbara, Rachel, all those players abroad. In my opinion, when I screen the league, there are really interesting talents, and I think with the upcoming tournaments, WAFCON now 25 and 26, they get exposure, and I have the feeling that they get a lot asked by international clubs. So probably, in the next year, there will be a wave also gonna go abroad. But I think with a good league, in terms of also our young talents get a lot of exposure and playing time. That's important, that a talent normally should 3-4 years in the home league get enough minutes, before she's then really ready to go abroad. But no, so far so good. Well, I have not so much headache in my life, basically. But first of all, I need to see them together, and now we call up 6 international players. Grace Chanda, Priska Chilufya are unfortunately out due to injuries. But after today, after the selection we've done, we think that we have a very balanced squad now. Of course, the strength, I think, has always been, the attack, transition into the attack. We worked already this week also to stabilize the defense, to give a structure into certain things. And I had the feeling that the players are very open-minded. They pick up quickly, are adapting to the new philosophy. Let's bring it together, and I can tell you maybe in a week a bit more than when I have the full squad together. I'm always happy when people have an opinion. I try to prove myself to them and give my all in. Basically, next week we play in the Woodland Stadium. It's confirmed, right? So I heard it's a stadium where we can really pack, and I expect again goosebumps. I think basically my dream is one day when the national stadium here the renovation is finished, that we can have probably in October our qualifiers there and have a sold out stadium. That would be, the highest of my dreams. I'm convinced that we can win the crowd. I mean, everywhere I go, it's easy in the shop right or wherever, everybody's telling me that they are a fan of the Copper Queens, so I feel a lot of support and positive emotions. And of course we need to deliver on the pitch, but I am convinced we will do next week, and then you can judge on it, of course. The focus, I think, in the pre-camp was really on selecting the right players, and now next week we are shifting a bit the focus. So it's basically really to implement the playing philosophy, getting the structure deeper down. The games will help us just to give also, when we call up 28 players, enough playing time and exposure time. So for me, it's really not only to burn the top 11 through, you also need to understand that players like Barbara Banda, they are now in pre-season. Then it's always also, we have a bit of responsibility. We cannot just burn everybody through, the top players. It's really the time to also, give a second or third choice on the position, exposure time, and then we can also really judge on a player, It's very difficult when they don't get the minutes on the pitch. So this is a bit the objective in those games. And of course, always we have the demand that we want to win those games, of course. But other things need to be also in focus. Mm-hmm. So far, I speak English. It's also not my mother language, basically, but I speak English. What we have done already this week, it's a vocabulary on football language, because I believe football is like a bit a universal language. A lot of things, player, you don't need to speak too much words. It's to bring them in the exercise and they pick it up so quick. But you see, I learned Buela, Yenda, Fakapo, Sia, Yesa, Vendela, Kusogolo, so Kumburio, Tie, Konya. Is it enough? So you see, I'm picking up. And then we have a playbook, and it's important that we have a common language, and they don't need to speak on the pitch. Then when it goes quick, you cannot speak something else, then you need to have these words, and I'm learning them too. So. Yes, I felt very open, welcomed with open arms. As I told you, I invited them to send me a list with a survey with 5 players they suggest, because I also want to have their opinion. They are more with the players on the pitch than I am. Of course, finally it's my choice, but they have been also very open this week. I was yesterday on the pitch for Janga, or I saw elite ladies, and I just asked, can I see tomorrow 1, 2 of those girls in an internal game, and they were very open to release them also. So very good exchange so far. I'm happy. Basically, we always need to understand as FA that the clubs, they do the basic work, and so for me to have there a good exchange, it's key. Yeah.
And on your philosophy?
Yeah, on my philosophy, basically, we start always on the ball. My belief is every kid who goes on the street likes to play with the ball, and the possession is the heart of football, which we can never negotiate. Of course, the level of the opponents also give us then a bit an indicator how much possession we're going to have. But in the beginning, it was to structure more on the possession. It was about keeping distances. And then secondly, we also had the defense day. In defending, I'm very structured with principles. What I usually we have principles which put in a playbook, and there it's a lot of discipline and structure they need to follow. In the offense it's in a bit more kind of freedom. Overall, always keeping the initiative, either you are off the ball, on the ball. And then the weapon is transition here, so it's also a part that of course that we make our strengths always stronger, not only look on the weakness side, what is really hurting our opponent, and there we want to still improve and get better.